Welcome everybody to the Realberg Experience, a podcast for creative individuals from all walks of life. We talk to rap stars, politicians, photographers, you name it. Maintain and entertain, I bet the show gon' get famous. So go and take a seat and let the people get to meet the innovative individual that you will be. Let's go. Welcome everybody to the Realberg Experience, the podcast for creative individuals from all walks of life. I'm your host, DP, and today we welcome a special guest. He is known around town, throughout District 6, as the Big Commish, the man with so much pressure on his shoulders, running the campaign through the COVID and whatnot. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Clayton Lopez. How you doing today, Clayton?
Doing good.
Thank you for coming on the show. I'm doing great. I can't complain.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's me stepping into these realms, and politics is something new for me. And I kind of enjoy it. I have learned a lot over the course of the past few weeks, and these things have been very informative. I'm glad to get you on the show to get your perspective about what's going on in this town and the campaign that's coming up.
Glad to be here, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to reach out to the community and be able to let them know some of the things about me that they may not know.
For the people that don't know, what is District 6?
Well, District 6 is an area, a district that's been created in order to make sure that there was diversity on the city commission. The district, it's a single member district. We have 6 districts in the city of Key West. District 6 was made up of the historically black, Bahamian, Cuban area of Key West, and but it became so much more diversified over the years. So that actually just speaks to me more to its importance that we make sure that we keep the single member districts. In fact, that's one of the reasons I'm running, and we can get into that a little more, but District 6 encompasses Bahama Village, which is probably the most well-known part of the district. But District 6, again, as I said, is the most diverse part of the district. The whole of District 6 is within the historic registry for Key West. By the way, Key West has the largest historic registry in the country. And District 6 fits entirely in that. No other district in the city has as many historic points than District 6. Nor does any other district in the city have as many people with varied interests as does District 6.
How long have you been commissioner for District 6?
I've been commissioner for 15 years now. I came in 2005.
And how was that?
That was quite a difficult time. That was right after Hurricane Wilma had pretty much destroyed the island. There were a lot of people that were in economic distress, which was exacerbated in 2007, 2008 with the economic decline in the country. We then started to bring the city back to life via affordable housing, with economic development plans within Duval Street, started to see a rise in that. The affordable housing projects that we've brought about, I can say, were the College Road project that we have now. We're getting ready to break ground on the 3.2 acres, which is part of the Bahama Village extension. We've bought into the Perry Court thing, which is kind of an issue for me because that one didn't quite go as well as planned.
Tell me about some of your background and how you tie into being commissioner. Like how does this all come about?
Well, people have told me that it was the logical progression because I've spent my life actually in community service. That's all I've ever done. That's what I know. It's part of my DNA. I heard another politician mention that as well on the radio this morning, which is fine. But I can tell you that I can back it up because it's true. It goes down generations. Our family was the very first family that the American Red Cross, the local American Red Cross, honored because of a generational contribution to the community. And I'm proud of that. And then my earliest recollection of community service would have been back in like when I was like 13, and and I was often the statement in my bio on the city's website. There's no, it's absolutely true. I was often the youngest voice heard in the room. That among a lot of our legendary community leaders now that are almost all gone now. But these are the men and women that I looked up to that mentored me. Many of them, I gotta admit, saw more in me than I saw in myself. I wanted to get out there and play, but they were always like, hey, no, Clayton, we need you at this meeting. And they were actually inviting me to come to these things. So, and I actually got into it. We marched on a segregated skating rink on Southern Street. We actually put together a community effort to rebuild the pool before it was the Martin Luther King pool. That the community pool was actually built to keep blacks off of the county beaches and the city beach actually. And but then later on, we had Ms. Lee Thompson come in, and she led the effort to actually make lemonade out of lemons. And actually, she started bringing in swimming programs and the like, and started teaching our young people to swim, and actually led the effort to rename the pool the Martin Luther King Jr. pool. So then I was part of all of those things. And moving on, I mean, just a whole lot of community effort. The 1972 riots at Key West High School. I was appointed by the governor then, Reuben Askew. Didn't know if I'm sure Reuben Askew didn't know me from Adam. But the reality of it is that he probably knew that I was one of the most outspoken young people at that time, and appointed me to a group of students and community leaders to help end that riot. So those were some of my earliest recollections of having been involved in the community, but they weren't the only ones.
You mentioned the riots back in the days. How was that? And how does that tie into what you see with the current climate of today in Key West?
Well, it gives me a perspective of having been there back when it was much more common than it is today, at least in our area. What I'm seeing nationally is what we got to experience for that period of time here locally.
How was the riots? Did you have segregated bathrooms? Did you?
No,
you had your own water fountain and stuff like that? Because I hear those stories. Like my mom, I think my mom went to
Douglas.
Yeah, I think my mom went to Douglas.
Yeah.
And she told me about how it was back then.
Sure. No, I remember the segregated water fountains and the segregated bathrooms and the like. But the riot itself came well after that. The Brown versus Ferguson decision was handed down in 1955. It didn't begin to take place here in Monroe County until 1965. And in 1967 was when the integration of schools was completed here in Monroe County. And there was no preparation for the students or the teachers themselves that were going to be handling these students. Many of the black teachers that you hear people talk about honoring now were cut loose. Many of them were not able to be hired on at these newly integrated schools. So there was a lot of dissension on both sides, quite frankly. It did not go as smoothly as I would imagine that everybody had hoped it would. Eventually it did lead to the riots that came up, and it was bad. It was bad. I remember some of the friends of mine being right there where I had just left, and actually seeing two police officers holding one student while another one hits him with the billy club. I was there. I remember that the high school administration had closed off the gates to the school so that the black students were separated from the white students. And by the way, there was no clear definition between blacks and whites, because there were whites on the black side and there were blacks on the white side. That had already begun. That understanding between the next generation had already begun. It was the administration that wasn't ready for it, if you ask me. So that's where the riot went. Then we worked along with some of the other students that were appointed as well. Deetra Fisher, who was Saunders at the time, the Max, and some other young people at the time that were leading the effort. I'm actually pleased to see the resurgence. I've got to echo the late great John Lewis's comments or his emotions at being elated at seeing the coming together of so many diverse people, so many diverse interests for this one common cause. Speaking, as Dr. King said, that none of us are free until all of us are equal. And that is so very important. And that really makes my heart leap.
So in the commission, I mean, it's not much diversity, right? I mean, you're the only, like yourself, right? You're the only, I mean, I'm just going to say what it
Yep.
is. You're the only guy of color in the commission, correct?
That's correct. Actually, I'm the only governmental elected official in all of Monroe County.
How long has that been?
Prior to the first District 6 commissioner, there were 22 years in between him and the last at-large elected city commissioner. Before him, it was 67 years in between him and his predecessor. So there hasn't been the diversity that we would like to see. Right now, the Justice Department has made it necessary to have single-member districts to ensure that you can have that diversity on city governments, to make sure that there is equal representation for all people. It makes it easier to get a person of color elected. It's no guarantee, but it does make it a lot less obstructive for a person of color to be able to be elected.
What about some of the difference between you and some of your opponents? Like, I know you're going up against Ryan Barnett, who I have had the chance to interview. It was a great conversation. I haven't had the chance to talk to John Wilson, but he is someone that I know. And you all definitely have different ideas on the agenda. What are some of your ideas that are different from theirs?
Well, the biggest thing is that I just want to get the job finished, Damali. I came in with a slate of projects and programs that were not done and that needed to be done. My predecessor was running into some of the same obstacles that I have run into, but we have gotten it done. For example, the Bishop Key statue was one of the things I'm most proud of that my predecessor had initiated but was unable to complete before she stepped down from the office. But I got it done. The recognition of 200 black soldiers that joined the Union Army from Key West was an important part that was being talked about at that time, but we got it done. The Veterans Memorial at Bayview Park, that once again was something else that was so important, that was also on the books long before, and we got it done. Finally, and one of the things that in that area, just speaking to that alone, is the Montfort Point Marines. I got the city commission to pass a resolution that they would fund, that they would place, and that they would pay for this memorial. It is not yet done. I want to see it done. On the books when I came in was the transfer of the naval properties that led to our talking about affordable housing. And that's what led to the Truman Waterfront Park and all the other parts there, the amphitheater and all the other wonderful things that are going on over there. But they began with the conversation about affordable housing. That's what needs to get done. That's what I'm trying to work on. I heard one of my opponents talk about the fact that that has taken so long. But if he were here, if he were paying attention, if he were involved, he would know that first that there were buildings that were there that we had to first knock down. Then we had to clean the soil through a thermal radiation process. First, it was done to industrial level. That was not good enough for what we wanted to get done. Then they did it to recreational level. That was not good enough for what we wanted to get done. Now we've gotten it down to residential level. It is that clean. That's how clean the soil is over there now. And that's now we can begin to move forward. In between all of that work, we've then gone ahead and put in a soccer field, or multi-use field we're referring to it as, so that we can make sure that place is being held until we get that housing built on that property. Now, that's something else that I took the lead on, because I made sure that nothing was done on that property until that field was reconstructed in another area of the property so that the housing could then be built. That's it. Nothing else can go there. Nothing else can delay this project anymore. I want to see that get done. Again, that particular challenger does not know this history. He says he was born here, but he didn't live here. He doesn't know this. My other challenger, we differ because of one issue in the community. We agree on the preservation of the history. And I have to say that I don't think that we've had an elected official that has done as much to promote the African American history, the native Key West history, than myself. I think that's one of the hallmarks. That will be my legacy, because I don't think that anybody can top that to date. However, we disagree on the museum. He thinks that a museum is more important to a community than a clinic. The reality of it to me is that I believe that there's nothing more important that a person or people can do than to honor their ancestors, than to honor their past. But you learn from that past, and you build on that past, and you move on. And the only way you can do that is by making sure your people are healthy. Right now, across the board, you pick a health issue, and black people, low-income people, are the people that are most negatively affected by every single disease known to the CDC, known to the World Health Organization, known to the National Institutes of Health, known to the Department of Health in Florida. I'm telling you, that's something that I know. One of my opponents can mention his credentials behind his name, but he doesn't know public health like I know public health. I've learned mostly that we have to make sure that we educate our people. That is very important. The health issue that I'm most associated with is the training of those medical professionals that do counseling and testing for HIV. There is no more enduring pandemic than HIV in our lifetime. However, we've come a long way with that. I did the training. I did everything with HIV, from deliver condoms to teach those people who give you the test. Teach those people who take care of you if you become infected. I did everything from the most menial part of that job to the uppermost part, to working with the experts to help develop policy. I've done all of that. I've been a part of all of that, from the state level down to our little old island of Key West. I've been involved. So, do I know pandemics? Yes. Is this something that we don't know too much about, this particular novel virus? By the way, just a very quick English lesson. When you mention the term novel, you're talking new, period. That's it. That means that we don't know a whole lot about it. We're learning a lot, but the more we learn, we find out that there's that much more to learn. Viruses do not have nuclei. They do not have brain centers like other diseases, like other bacterium, etc., etc. They don't have this stuff, but they are smart. Somehow They find a way to mutate, replicate, and be able to fight or avoid those things that we learn about how to deal with them. So then we have to deal with that. There are already some mutations of this COVID virus. Some people may remember when the world was concerned about SARS. Some people may remember when we were concerned about the avian flu. Some people may remember when we were concerned about Ebola. These are all pandemics. I worked for the health department through all of those things. People like myself is why we didn't have a big problem with them in the United States of America. Of course, one of the biggest issues is that we had leadership at the top. We don't have that at the top at this point. So we've got to be more prepared on our level, and we have to use the knowledge that we do have to better enable our people and better prepare our people to be healthy.
So, with that being said, what do you think about the city's response to the pandemic? Like, what side do you fall on? Which one do you think is more important, the economy or?
That's a good. Oh, that's a question.
Because it's either way, one of them are like, they're both tragic,
Yeah, I hear you. Where do I stand with respect to the balance between our health and our economy? Every single time, as much as I care about the economy, I care more about our health. If the shop owners are not living, then there's nobody to open businesses. If the people they employ are ill, there's nobody to work those businesses. If the people that are the consumers for those businesses cannot leave their homes because they're quarantined, then there's nobody to keep those businesses in operation because there's nobody to buy. We have to keep the community healthy first. Then we deal with the economy. We have to keep our people fed. We need to keep our people housed, and we need to keep our people healthy. That is the most important thing. Granted, does that take a drain? Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. Can resource sharing be something that we should be looking at? 100%. 100%. Should we be looking at the possibility of bringing the health department in early rather than thinking that because we are the government, that we can make those decisions without the experts who actually know these things better than we do? No, we need to have them sitting at the table with every one of the decisions that deals with our people's health. And I think that needs to be done early every single time. In order to bring the economy back for an economic recovery, because that's exactly what it's going to be, first we're going to all have to realize that there's no return to normal, because there is no more normal. Reality is completely different than what we once thought it was. All of that going forth is going to be as if we're stepping outside of a cloud. That's reality. So, that said, I think that what we need to do then is once again look into resource sharing, bring everyone at the table, have everybody sit down, let's put together our best minds, let's come up with some resource sharing ideas. Let's work with the federal government. And you notice I hesitate a little bit there, and with good reason there, because so far we've gotten a little better from our state government, but not as much from our federal government as we should have. But that's beside the point again, because right now I think that we need to be preparing ourselves for whatever possibility may happen. We have to prepare ourselves for eventualities that we may not know about. We need to be prepared. I was in a desktop exercise back when I was still working for the Department of Health. And one of the things that shocked everyone in the room was the state of Florida said that in an extreme pandemic where everyone was infected, Monroe County, Florida Keys, you're on your own. Rather than infect someone else from the mainland, We would have to find a way to be. But here's the thing. One of the best things about the Florida Keys and Key West is not only our history, not only our culture, but it's our natural resources. We have it better than anybody in that area. If you look at the honorary conch certificate, it talks about our blue waters. It talks about our fisheries. It talks about our areas of that can keep us fed if others cannot get down to help us. We can do that. Moving into another area of concern, that's why it's also important for us to protect our ecology. It's also important for us to be able to keep those things alive because we don't know when we're going to have to call on them for our sole source. There are three referenda that are coming up on the ballot, on the November ballot. And I'm in favor of smaller, cleaner cruise ships. I'm not in favor of eliminating them entirely. And I think that part of the reason for that is again, when you look at the fact that some of our neighbors actually work for the companies that benefit from that economy. Some of the employers, again, employ our neighbors, some of our family members that, again, benefit from that industry. So I understand that. So do I want to get rid of it? No. But do I want to make sure that we set the standard that they have to follow? Absolutely. I think that we need to be upfront of it. Not let them dictate to us, we dictate to them what we want. When it comes to taking care of our environment, I'm real cognizant of that necessity. And I think we've already touched on that. We've actually already passed legislation seeking for help from the state to be able to ban plastics in our waters. The city, by referendum, has said that they do not want us to do any dredging in our local waters. I think that that's wonderful. I think that I support our Congresswoman Debbie Mucaso-Powell's effort to hold off as much as we can the fracking off of the Florida Keys, and I sponsored a resolution opposing fracking anywhere in the state of Florida because, first of all, if you look at the way that the city of Key West and the Florida Keys is situated, we sit on the edge of a basin, a mouth, if you will, for the entire Caribbean. The reality of it is that if you look at the Gulf Stream and look at the way that it goes and it turns, it churns, and everything settles right where we sit geographically. We're always the worst hit. If it's going to come around and it's not stopped before that, we were spared an enormous catastrophe from the Gulf oil spill. Because if they had not stopped that when they did, we would have been the biggest catastrophe as a result of that. There's so much more. I sponsored a resolution very early on to combat Big Sugar and their contamination of the Everglades. I immediately sponsored right after that another resolution denouncing corporate personhood. But then also, I just recently sponsored a resolution that the city of Key West would support the Florida Keys Aqueduct Association lawsuit against the Turkey Point cooling canals.
What are those?
The Turkey Point cooling canals. The cooling canals are what they use to cool the nuclear plants. Every other nuclear plant in the country, and to my understanding, possibly even the world, every single other one is using a different method of cooling the nuclear plant itself. Ours is the only one that's still using cooling canals, which allows that radioactive material to leach into our water, which then leaks into our aquifer. Well, we know that the biggest part of the water that we drink comes from the Biscayne aquifer. Turkey Point is only a few miles away from the Biscayne aquifer.
We're talking about big changes, and one of the big changes that they wanted to happen was the mall on Duval. And I saw where a couple other potential commissioners were saying where they would have fell on it, and I saw that I think you fell on the other side of it. Explain to me your thoughts on that.
Well, it was said that by one group that supports one of my challengers that I voted against Mall on Duval. That's an outright lie. I voted in favor of it because I wanted to give it a chance. Although in reality, I spoke against it because I did not believe that it would work, and I'll tell you why. The reason I didn't believe it would work is because everywhere that I've seen that kind of closure, that kind of street closure, has been with streets that would, excuse me, encompass our sidewalks on either side as well as our street on just one side. In other words, Duval Street is far too narrow. The sidewalks are far too narrow. We don't have the space necessary to be able to do what they want to do as far as Duval Street closure. Do I think that it's worth consideration of maybe going one way and allowing a partial closure? Absolutely. I'm all open to looking forward, to looking into it. But am I convinced that that's the only way or a complete closure if that's the only way? No. I think I'm willing to look into whatever possibilities there are. I heard from too many of the other businesses in my district for whom this was had a negative impact. So that bothered me. I could not support something like that. However, once again, and I have to stress this, am I completely 100% against doing something like the Duval Mall? No. I would be willing to look at whatever possibility would favor the majority of the businesses in the area that would help. Because again, going back to the health issue, if we ever have to shut down again, I want to make sure that our businesses are strong enough to be able to endure.
So, with that being said, let's talk some about the flood maps, because they're saying it's about 7 years or so before, we're just floating in the middle of the ocean.
Sure, sure. Yeah, we've got, there are a couple of different things to deal with on that. One thing is a resolution that I just recently sponsored as well to challenge the flood maps that FEMA has given us for Key West. Basically, what they're doing is that even if you've elevated already, the new flood maps put you back into a floodplain that increases your insurance rates, and that just doesn't work for me. We're sitting in a home right now that was set up according to the FEMA flood plan. The old home that was washed away in a flood was 1 foot below what the flood level is. This house was built 3.5 feet above what it needed to be. So, but now under those new FEMA flood maps, I'll only be 6 inches above. Does that give you an idea of what the issue is? So, absolutely, I challenge the FEMA flood maps. And I think that it's necessary for us as a city because of where we are with that. Our residents can't afford that. So, and moving on to that, we've also installed some of the ongoing flood issues that we've had to deal with in Key West. We've actually installed storm tidal water valves to try and deal with some of the flooding issues that we deal with whenever we have to deal with king tides and the like. So we're actually moving forward on it, and I'm pleased to be a part of coming up with some solutions to that.
What are some of the big challenges that District 6 faces at the moment?
Well, one of our biggest challenges is probably one of our biggest assets, and that is our diversity. The fact that there are so many pieces that come together to bring our history, which is a big thing. One of the big challenges, I guess, would be right now moving forward, because all the activity in the city is happening here in District 6. Right now, we have just completed the Truman Waterfront Park. We have yet to complete the affordable housing, which is the next thing on the table for the city as far as major construction projects. We have just broken ground for the athletic pavilion, for lack of a better word for it now, I forget the actual term, but for lack of the pavilion for our youth to be able to have another place to be able to go. The Harris School property is one of the biggest problems that we have in District 6, but it also speaks to the diversity of District 6. Back when I was first elected, the school board had just completed a sale of that property to the current owner. That owner has basically let the property run down, and we've since had a whole lot of complaints from the neighbors. We've cited them. They've taken out all kinds of permits that have ended up been left open. They've never been inspected to be inspected. So then the permits then just, they don't close, but they die. So if we catch them doing the work without without an active permit, then we can do something. Otherwise, we can't do a whole lot if they're not doing that. If they're not doing any more than that. But we are working on it. Right now, I know that we have a magistrate hearing coming up, but of course, right now, everything is also stalled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But we do have them slated for the next magistrate hearing, and we'll get a lot more information then. But this is something that we've been dealing with for a long time, and I agree with the neighbors that it's a big problem. I just wish everybody would be better neighbors.
So, with that being said, tell me how much this community means to you. You know, I know it's a part of you at this point.
Amen.
Anything that you have going on for the last 5, 10, 15 years is ultimately a part of you.
Amen.
So tell me what it means to you to become District 6 Commissioner once again.
Again, I thank you for that question, because this community brought me up. This community is where I want my grandchildren to be raised. I take everything about this community personally. I get others who are in politics, others who are in administration say all the time, Clayton, you take this too personal. Well, it is personal for me. It's important to me. It's that important. That's why I've always been here. That's why I'm here now. That's why I'll be here tomorrow. That's why I can say on those signs that you see, you already know me. My phone number is 305-797-3584. Call me. If you've got a question for me, call me. If you need me, call me. I've been here, I'm here, and I will be here. This is my community. I came from the community, and I will be from the community. I'm always for the community. Always. This is my community. Yes, do I take it personally? Absolutely.
This is your community. I do not want to fight. I'm scared right now. You got a little aggressive right there. Joke, joke, joke. You know, with that smile, who could ever be scared, right? Man, well, I want to thank you, Clayton, for coming on the show and giving me a great and informative interview. You know, this definitely flowed smoothly. I know people are going to be glad to hear from you. Is there anything that you want to say to the people?
I'm just so thankful that I've been allowed to serve the people, to be able to give back for as long as I have, and I'm looking forward to just being able to finish the job. I'm looking forward to more interaction, building on what we've done well, and perhaps a second chance at what we haven't done quite so well. You already know me. My name is Clayton Lopez. Vote for me on August 18th.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Clayton Lopez for Commissioner 6. Clayton, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. I am DP. I want to thank you guys for watching. As always, it's been a great show. Clayton Lopez, DP Photography. We're out.